Welcome back, everyone, to Creatives Grab Coffee. Today we have Scott and Trevor from Enjoy Creative. They are a full-service production company based in Winnipeg that's passionate about helping brands use video to overcome challenges and achieve outstanding results. Guys, welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
We're excited to be here.
So I guess just so everyone knows who you guys are, why don't you give us a little background?
Sure, yeah. So like you said, we're Enjoy Creative out of Winnipeg, Manitoba. We started in 2018. Scott and I went to school together at a college here. Yeah, we're a full service video production company. So we work with commercial clients across all kinds of different industries and sectors. We're really passionate about working with our clients to truly understand what they're trying to achieve and how we can help them with video. That's pretty much our focus. We try to avoid, I guess, just, making videos that go out to kind of die, so to speak. We would really love if the videos we make actually have a life to them and actually help the clients we're working with. So that's what we kind of strive to always do with our projects.
I like that. We don't want to make videos that go to die. That's such a good way of putting it.
in a way, YouTube is the place for videos to go to die. If you don't know what you're doing with it, because you're basically putting it up, it's like a video tombstone, and then it's ready to go.
Yeah,
just lives there.
It can certainly feel that way sometimes, for sure. Yeah.
So you guys started the company in 2018?
Yeah, 2018. I guess we're actually very close to our fourth year in a couple of weeks, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
Every year is a nice little milestone, like I remember when we hit the first like 4 or 5 years as well, we were just like, wow, has it really been that long?
Yeah, it's hard to believe sometimes. The time kind of just flies by, and but it definitely does feel good. You hear those stats about how many businesses fail, in their first year, and then by 3 years, how many more fall off and don't make it. And so it does. There's definitely a little sense of pride there for sure in making it another year and growing.
I
think
I think that stat says, like, if you can make it to 5 years, you can make it to 10.
Yeah. That sounds good.
Well, they usually say that the companies or any business, if they don't make it past 3 years, that they're typically doomed to fail at that point. The funny thing is, most of the companies we've had on the show have been at least 5 years plus in business. So I think you guys are probably one of the youngest businesses that we've actually had on the show to date. And so kind of like tell us a little bit about how you guys got kind of started in terms of like what made you decide to jump into being a business, and how it's been so far on that end.
Cool. Yeah, I think so. We were both working in video right out of school. So I was in commercial video work, and Trevor was doing documentary work. But we stayed in touch. We were good buddies, I guess. So we hung out quite a bit, and we chatted. We were often talking a little bit about what we were seeing in the industry, and I guess by that point, video production, commercial video production, social media, all that kind of stuff was just, already really popular. Video was, it was kind of easy to spot that video was growing in demand. There was a huge need for content, basically. So we saw that, and we felt that, there's an opportunity there, but also, there's an opportunity to have a little bit of creative control over it if we start our own thing and try and make our our own mark and do really good work. So that's kind of what sparked our interest in taking that leap into starting our own business. And I can't say, like, I wouldn't never look back. Like it was a great decision. It was a big decision at the time, but it's worked out really well, and it's been a whole lot of fun.
Did you see a need? Did you see like a need? Did you see a need in the Winnipeg market? Like, how big is it there in terms of video production? Did you feel like there was a good opportunity for yourselves to kind of accelerate and grow quickly?
I think we saw there was room. It's Winnipeg is really tight knit, but very active. So there's a lot going on here, but it's all kind of part of a pretty tight community. So we already had some connections within that community. So it felt like we were kind of just like taking a step, kind of establishing ourselves amongst our peers at that point. And it felt like there was definitely room to kind of still fit in there and differentiate ourselves and make a mark with what we do. So yeah, I think we saw that there was an opportunity there to still kind of do something and stand out within the market.
That's interesting because I was looking at production companies in Winnipeg, and like you said, it is kind of like a smaller market, and it's interesting to see that you guys are still able to fit into that market, because again, it's small, it's tight knit. If I was in that situation, I'd feel like, oh man, how do I compete? Like, is there anything left for me, you know?
Like, especially because there have been times where like we've been hired out on freelance with some other project with some other companies in the past, where they've actually even flown us into like some of the inner provinces where there's not as big of a marketing and video production community. So like you're also not only competing with those there, but also because of those organizations that have to bring in other people, you know, because they, you know, they're more international with Canada. So it's good to see that you guys managed to kind of still break into that, even with that challenge.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting perspective, I suppose. I guess like I'd say it's like quite regional here. Like a lot of the companies that are in our industry are working regionally within Manitoba, within Saskatchewan, Northwest Ontario there. So I think that's like a prevalent component of our industry. There is some kind of national component to it, but I think at the end of the day, like most national stuff goes to Toronto, goes to, you know, Vancouver or Montreal, that kind of thing. So I think there's that reality to it, but I think there's still like a thriving need, an industry and a need for video work, even within a regional on a regional level, I suppose. So in some ways it's kind of like, to counter what you said there, Dario, like it's also not as it could be. I could see going to Toronto and trying to start a business in Toronto being scary because there's just so much work going on there. And how do you stand out in there? Whereas here it's a little bit of like, you know, a little smaller pond to kind of work within. And in some ways, I think, you know, it made us, you know, being seen and heard maybe a little bit easier. So I could see both sides of that. Yeah.
Yeah. I heard from a Toronto transplant who was freelancing in Toronto, came here and kind of mentioned that the biggest kind of eye-opening experience for them was they don't have to be laser focused on the job postings on Facebook and bidding, like immediately seeing 30 comments on every job posted saying like, I'm good for this. And, you know, everyone's undercutting on that entire list. Like, it's kind of like you just start working and make a name for yourself, and jobs will come if you're talented, I suppose. I mean, it's harder than that, but you know what I mean. Yeah.
It's funny
There's
hearing
enough work to go around.
Yeah, here in the producer group, though, it's funny that here in the producer group, you're right. Like as soon as there's a job posting, there's like 50 comments. We've even done listings on that Facebook group, and within like 30 minutes, there's like 30 people, and I'm like, I can't even go through this many. I just need
The
like
first time we did it, we actually gave our email, which was the biggest mistake of all time.
Bad idea.
And that inbox just got flooded so badly. Not only that, but also our DMs,
private messages.
They just kept messaging, like they would email and DM and comment and everything. And so at one point we just said, all right, let's make an Excel spreadsheet or like
no. We did
forms.
No, we did something else first. We did a dumb thing. We created a separate email handle for it. That was like an extra $50 we had to pay for.
Well, yeah.
With G Suite. Then we got smart. Then we created a Google Forms for it, and then it kind of expedited the process for it.
Yeah. And then if people DM'd you after that, you know, when you explicitly told them to put stuff onto the form, it's like, okay, so you didn't read what I said.
Yeah.
That's I mean, in some ways that's got to be kind of nice, because there have been scenarios where we've been trying to find crew, and it's tough because our film industry is kind of starting to have a bit of a boom, I guess you could say. There's a good film subsidy in Manitoba, so a lot of kind of like TV shows and movie productions are starting to come here. So that's like drawing a lot of, you know, the traditional crew towards those, and then in the summer you're kind of like, oh, who's available right now?
Yeah, everyone who you regularly turn to is often on big productions on the film side of things right now.
Yeah.
So sometimes in the commercial world, when you're like, hey, I have this 2-day production, can you interrupt your 3-month commitment to come do this thing?
Yeah.
So you guys are skeletal crews, not by choice, by that's just
yeah. It's a bit of both. Yeah.
Yeah, like here it's a matter of like, you know, like people can kind of like choose almost like how big they want their productions and projects to kind of be. But there, like, I can imagine, I mean, talent, to be honest, talent even here, believe it or not, is really hard to find.
Yeah.
You know,
Good talent.
like good, well, yeah, good talent,
Yeah,
exactly.
good talent,
So like you get like 100 people applying on something, and then maybe 5 are okay, 2 are really good, and or like that's roughly the ratio. So if that's what we're struggling with,
and then one of those two is very overpriced, and you're like, this is
Yeah.
this is a lot
too
for
busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the worst is when people who apply who are way too busy, and then it's like, okay, but I what now?
What am I gonna eat?
bring you
Yeah.
on a project.
An interesting.
So
line.
imagine like with it being that difficult here, I can't imagine how difficult it is sourcing talent in your area.
It can be. I think there's busy seasons, and I think Winnipeg is a big, for better or worse, it's a big word of mouth town. So there's lots of talented people here, and you have your go-tos to kind of turn to, and then kind of when those don't work out in your favor, like finding fresh people can be sometimes a challenge, or a great opportunity to kind of bring someone on and kind of show them the ropes. But yeah, I guess that's kind of where it lands. Yeah.
I think relationships are really important here. Like it's again, smaller communities, so everyone knows one another, and in some ways, once you kind of develop those relationships, it becomes a little bit easy, because as long as availability lines up, then you kind of establish that roster of people, and you kind of work with them from there on in. But there've been times where, and not even us, like you hear from other people who are like, do you know someone who does this? Anyone? We need them like tomorrow, kind of thing. We get those kind of messages every now and then, but it's pretty good still at the end of the day.
Yeah, like that's because of this like big challenge of like being able to find the right people, you know, and have the timings align. You know, that's one of the reasons also why we started this show, is to kind of like help like create like a little bit of a community between all the production companies, where, you know, sometimes you need someone in another city, but you don't know anyone there that's good. You know, you want to have people that you can reach out to, that you know, that can reliably either recommend someone or even help at the same time as well, which has happened with a few of the guests that we've had on the show already. You know, some that are based in Montreal needed shooters here in Toronto for like a certain project, you know, and like this is like one of the ways that, you know, you can kind of filter out like good talent, you know, like a really rather quickly, especially with the nature of quick commercial type projects, right? We all have those days where the clients are just like, hey, you have someone that can shoot something tomorrow across the country?
Yeah.
Like that happens all the time, right? And so now it's like, oh, maybe now there's opportunities for it, right?
Yeah 100%. We're often on the receiving end of that here in Winnipeg. We find ourselves being kind of sourced to kind of shoot different things for production companies across Canada and the States and outside of that, actually.
Just in the last couple of months, I think we've had like 5 or 6 just day shoot, kind of like go interview kind of thing, just from across North America, which is, we like them. They're kind of fun and easy to, you know, they're kind of stress free in some ways, but it's
they're
nice to
quick.
know.
They're quick and simple. Like they're very straightforward. You know, you're working with other companies, you know, who have a specific kind of thing in mind for what you need to do. But it's interesting that you mentioned that you guys do a lot of that in Winnipeg. Is that, how much would you say that has been like a in terms of your business, like 20-30% of like the work that you're kind of doing over there now, or is it vary?
I think we're thinking, because it so we had in our first couple years, it would have been a good chunk, but it was because of special circumstances. Since then, it's pretty small. It's like it's maybe it's like it's here and there. But in the first, I want to say our second year, just through crazy circumstance, we were contacted by a production company in South Korea called You've Got Pictures. Amazing people. Basically, they were filming A Dog's Purpose. That it was a
movie.
They weren't filming that. That movie was being filmed here.
Yeah. A Dog's Purpose was being filmed in Winnipeg, and one of the actors on that film was this K-pop artist as well. And this production company from South Korea, the only time they could fit in this music video shoot with this K-pop artist was when they were in Winnipeg filming A Dog's Purpose. So it turned out that he had a week off, a week break, and we were kind of sourced to like essentially like line produce this K-pop music video, which was like the biggest production that we've ever done at the time, because it was a fairly big crew. It was in a remote location. The logistics of getting gear to this like cabin on a lake in the middle of nowhere was just kind of a giant headache. There was like a giant blizzard that happened. It was supposed to be this fall scene, but of course we're in Winnipeg, and the first snowfall of the year is the blizzard. And anyways, it was a ton of fun. The production, it went off smoothly for all the hiccups. It went off well. And then after that, they kind of turned back to us a couple times to do commercial productions in Winnipeg to kind of be an alternative to New York, because we kind of have similar architecture in certain areas.
Oh, really?
Sort of. more like any American city, like Chicago or whatever. We kind of like there's like pockets of it that work for that.
Yeah. So they kind of turned to us for two more for relatively large productions that took up, months of our time. So that was kind of in our second year. So if you asked us that question then, it would be a larger portion of what we did. But since COVID, that's kind of dropped off.
I wonder how many shows are out there, like maybe 80 or 90% that are based in New York, but are actually filmed in random cities across the world.
Well, most of it is Toronto. Toronto's like 10 in New York.
Yeah.
We always like to see them try to hide like some of our street signs, like Yonge Street or Bay Street.
The taxis, when we see the yellow taxis or the fake subways.
I've seen them. You guys must be like the Manhattan like stand-in.
Exactly. All they got to do is Photoshop out the CN Tower, and then they're golden.
Right.
Yeah.
Which we've seen.
That's hilarious.
I've seen it in a show once. I was like, did they really just try to remove the CN Tower in that scene?
Yeah. And here in Winnipeg, we noticed with what we did with them, instead of photoshopping out the CN Tower, they were putting it in bombs and stuff. Let's make this look a little warmer.
Like, they added some palm trees. Yeah, that was good. Yeah.
It's like, why is everyone trying to base their shows in New York? Like everything has to be in New York, but none of it is filmed there. It's like, when are they gonna realize?
Taxes.
Oh
bro.
my God. No, I mean like just to base it somewhere else. It's like, enough with New York. We're sick of it.
Because no one knows anything else. They just know LA, New York, and that's about it.
That's it, right?
It was kind of refreshing seeing the new Turning Red, the new Pixar film, is set in Toronto, and it just it's Toronto the whole way through. It was pretty neat.
Yeah, down to the metro passes, right?
Yeah.
So how long just going back a little bit, how long were you guys freelancers for before you guys decided to partner up and create a business?
Sure. Yeah. So I freelanced for about a year and a half. We both graduated in 2015. I freelanced for about a year and a half. And then I was hired by a French television documentary production company here called Wookiee Films. Worked there for 3.5 years before doing this. So that was kind of my path here.
I didn't freelance at all, actually. I was lucky to get hired right out of school. I went to a small commercial production company. I was there until we started Enjoy.
So how that must have been very like interesting, because you guys were basically already in jobs for a little while did it feel kind of scary to kind of leave those jobs to, basically start your own thing? And like usually it's easier for freelancers because they're already kind of used to that type of lifestyle. It's just adding a name to the freelancing essentially. But when you're already working at another company, like to make that switch, like what was like some of the first things you guys did to do that transition?
Save some money, I suppose. try and have a bit of a safety net there. Yeah, no, I think it definitely was a little scary at the beginning there. I think part of it was that we felt pretty darn confident about our network, I suppose. Like we had like through school and just through the few years of working in the video industry, like we kind of got a sense of like what the demand was like and where the opportunities for getting some work were, and I think we felt fairly confident that if there's a chance that this could just flop and fail, and like that's fine, and it's better to do that now at like a younger age. We didn't have, like, neither of us had kids, and neither of us had a house at that time or anything like that. Like we were pretty, not a lot of responsibilities. So like if things totally failed, that it wasn't a drastic fallout, but at the same time, we felt really confident that we would be able to make it work, and we definitely worked. We basically said yes to everything, in that first year. You just, yeah, you do what you can to get that next project, and that was a big part of it.
Yeah, it definitely was. There was, it was a tough decision. Like as excited as I was for it, and as confident as we were, like it would be a lie if I said it wasn't a tough decision. Like it was scary leaving some stability in regular income, in the lack of stress of just having someone else kind of manage everything, and kind of tied to that is just the personal relationships that you kind of build at your jobs. Like I'm close still with everyone at my job at Wookie Films, and it was really scary, even just leaving that, like bringing up that I'm about to go do my own thing was a big step. But luckily everything worked out great, and like we're still really close, and I'm super happy we did it, and now we're here. So
one thing I really like what you guys mentioned is that one thing a lot of companies typically do, or people that give advice when they're starting a business, is like, oh, they wanted to make sure they have enough savings, which is the standard thing. Everyone wants to have, at least a little bit of a safety nest egg that they can, kind of fall back to if they need to. But what I really like what you guys did was you felt confident in your network, like and you were kind of like almost like taking inventory of that. It's like, how big is our network, and can we leverage that in a way that we will be successful over the next few years? And I think that is something a lot of people don't typically take too much into consideration when they're starting a business. Technically speaking, when Dario and I started the business was the worst time in a way. We were basically completely from zero. Like we started the business while we were still in school. We were barely in the industry at all, so we didn't know anything about it. So essentially the first 4 or 5 years was like us almost like freelancing for a little bit, but under a business name. And then it was only like until the pandemic hit was when we actually started to treat it more like a business. Whereas you guys, you've already been in the industry, you learned on your own from different experiences, you came together, you leveraged your own individual networks, and you knew that you guys will be successful from that. And I think that's what a lot of people need to think about. It's like, sure, you have a nest egg, but how quickly will that nest egg go if you don't have the connections or the leverage to kind of prop yourself up in the future, right? So kudos to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny, it's so, I think what we hear often is when someone's like, oh, I'm going to start a business or something like that, the first question is like, hey, like, where's your first sale going to come from? And that's like a scary question that sometimes at that early stage, because you don't necessarily know. But I think just knowing that you have people to turn to and people that you can say like, hey, this is what I'm doing now. You're not necessarily going to jump into like cold calling or anything like that. That's the most scary thing to do. But being able just to go to people and say, hey, this is what we're doing now. We'd like love to, help out in any way possible. Like we did that very much. Like a big part of our when we started was a big push just to let people know that this is what's happening now. We're available, and we'd love to help. And
Yeah.
we got a really strong response from that. People, spread the word, that kind of thing. So word of mouth played a huge factor.
Yeah, and the like list that we made to contact people right off the bat there, they weren't necessarily like hard business contacts. They were just like everyone in our network. We're just saying like, listen, this is what we're doing now. We just want you to know. And the large majority of that list just said like, oh, hey, cool, like congratulations, good luck. But just by kind of putting the word out there that we were doing this thing, I think we got some projects out of those relations. Like we definitely got projects out of those relations. Still to this day, we are still getting projects from those initial kind of feeler emails and calls that we did. So it was an important first step.
And maybe like a bit of another kind of component to it is we didn't go to we went to a communications program for our school. So which had like a media component, but it also had a marketing component, a PR component, and a journalism component. So the benefit there is that we got a pretty good media education, but we also got a really good communications education, but we also built a network of communicators now. So a lot of our colleagues from school are now in marketing positions, in communications positions throughout the city. And that's like been super valuable, where those are the individuals who are now hiring us for their companies or for their organizations. So that was, I think there's a lot of weight to that like maybe it's easy to gloss over. We weren't just like strictly video people, like we had that other side, and that is what our network was made of in a sense. So that certainly helped, I think.
Yeah, when you start your own business, you got to leverage just everything that's at your disposal. Like you guys were leveraging your network, which is really good. And I guess you guys were at an age where like they were already kind of moving up in their careers and everything. Unfortunately for us, when we first started, first of all, we were just trying to learn the skills to be able to become filmmakers, right? Like we spent like several years just trying to fine tune those. And like Kyrill said, it wasn't up until the pandemic that we really kind of just sat down and tried to develop our business skills further. So I'm kind of wondering, when you guys first started, like you kind of went from being employees at companies or freelancing to now you have to run your own business, right? Like it's a whole different skill set. So how did you guys adapt to that? Because it took us many years to not many years.
We're still learning.
We're still learning.
It never
like
ends.
I'm a professional now, but it never ends, the learning.
Definitely.
I think there was probably like you just said it perfect. We're always still learning. There's always like stages. Like I think when we first started, there was like an independence and a kind of like exciting freedom that came with not having the most work at the time and just dreaming about the prospects of what could come, and the projects that we did have, we could give 100% attention to all the time. And then as you kind of work on more and more, and you get busier and busier, and you hire that first employee and that second employee, suddenly there's very new stresses. There's managing a team. There's like client, the process the client goes through to make sure that nothing slips through the cracks. These are all things we're always kind of working on, and I've found personally that I've learned, or like I've really started enjoying that side of things. I still really love the filmmaking side of it all. That's why I do what I do. But as these things kind of come across my desk, it's been really interesting seeing the kind of things we have to do to make sure that we're still in a good position, we're still growing, we're still on top of things, and we're still producing great work. It's been a challenge, but it's been really kind of fun.
How do you guys like, what do you do? Like what does like Trevor do versus like what Scott does? Do you guys kind of like split everything half and half? Like are you guys both taking care of like the business end and the creative end, or is one more business focused, one more creative focused?
Yeah, it's a funny one. I think we for the longest time, and still to this day, I think very much have split things pretty 50-50. I don't know. I think like when it comes to like more of the business stuff, the admin stuff, managing that kind of thing, like we both wanted to be like aware of it and learning it, and understanding it. And I think like that's what we've done to this day. And I think, as we grow, at some point that's going to like split off. It doesn't make sense anymore for us to be like doing all the nitty gritty stuff. But we really, both kind of, neither of us were just kind of like, no, I don't like it, you do it kind of thing. We were lucky that we both kind of committed to that and worked hard on it. And so far it's been good. I think it makes, we make a lot of decisions together where we, discuss things and neither of us are kind of going rogue or anything like that. I think creatively there's like a bit of a split there. We have in the past shared a lot of responsibility and both across our productions, but somewhat recently now we're doing a bit of a split in our specialties, where I'm taking on a bit more of a focus on animation, whereas Trevor is focusing a little more on the live action side of things. So that's probably, I think, where we'll see our roles maybe splitting a little bit on the production side. But yeah, it's interesting because I think the classic, like you hear all those examples of like past like teams and how they had like different strengths that kind of like were compatible together, like the Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak story and all those kinds of things. And you kind of like, you're like, it's definitely, but in my head where I'm like, oh man, you and I have very similar skill sets, very similar like strengths and that kind of thing. But at the same time, it's made it like to be like really compatible. It's been easy to work together on things, and very few, if any, conflicts that we've ever encountered or anything like that along the way. So yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about partnership. How do you guys mesh together? Like, you guys have a good you guys were friends before, right? Has that like friendship changed as you guys became a business?
Good question. Yeah, I don't think so. I think I mean, we're good friends before, good friends now. Yeah, no crazy dramatic business stories about yelling matches or big disagreements or anything like that. We're usually always on the same page, and if there are problems, we're pretty good at working it out. Like, not problems between us or anything like that, like just like stressors in the business or situations going on. I think if anything, we're pretty good at just like chatting with each other and just calming ourselves down and kind of taking another stab at a fresh look at whatever's in front of us and going from there. So no, it's been great.
Yeah, when we first started and we're telling people, like, oh yeah, we started this business and we're partners, we used to be friends, we're still friends, like we're friends. We're friends and everything. They always told us like, oh, that's a terrible idea, it's not gonna end well. 5+ years later, here we are.
What are you talking about? It's been 7. It's been
7 years later, here we are.
But look, the thing is, like with any partnership, like any business, people are always going to bump heads, on some things. Nothing's ever completely seamless, like sometimes you're going to have disagreements on certain things. And what do? You have to figure it out, talk it out. You both make points of like why something's good, why something isn't, and then you come to an agreement, and, you provide a collective front on, what you do with the business, right? Like nothing's ever going to be like, without any like kind of like confidence. This is how business actually evolves, right? If everyone wasn't, at least like kind of like bumping heads a little bit at times, like businesses won't progress. I mean, look at what happened with some of the biggest companies in the world. There was so much drama that was happening behind the scenes. It wasn't great, but to their credit, the businesses did thrive and grow as a result, right? So it's always good to kind of like have someone that you can kind of bounce ideas off of. Like you guys have, it's like, hey, what do you think about this idea? It's like, oh, I think it's good, but let's try this. Or no, that doesn't work because I've seen this. Like it's good to have that kind of internal filter within the business. Like we know some people who are by themselves in a business, and they unfortunately don't have that internal buffer within the business that they can kind of bounce off of, and it's not a disadvantage necessarily. They have other advantages, but it's a different type of dynamic.
Yeah, definitely. I think that was definitely one of the appeals of like, as opposed to starting something solo, was to have like a partner in it where you can kind of share those decisions and get a different perspective. And I think that's been so so valuable throughout like the past few years, and even as we've grown and added people to our team, like adding those perspectives as well has been really great. I think it's nice having, it's important to have different voices in the room, and it's definitely, I think, in like without a doubt, been far more of a strength to like work as a partnership as opposed to going solo or anything like that. It's been crucial.
Yeah, you mentioned you have a team of people. How big is your core team now?
There's 5 of us in total, so three employees.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what are like their roles within the business at this point?
So we have a shooter editor, we have a motion designer, and then we have a project coordinator who really has helped us take off a little bit of that production load or production management load, I suppose, and we've been able to continue to work more hands-on with the projects themselves. Yeah.
I think that's a good kind of balance in terms of like the roles. You guys have basically checked off all the key ones that we typically all look for when projects tend to scale, right? You know, you got the hybrid shooter editor, you know, who can, you know, take on a role depending on what is needed, you know, and then you guys can hire other people, you know, depending on the scale of the project. You have your motion graphics designer. That's the hardest to find, you know. Most of them are very, very freelance based. Because of like how complex those jobs are. I mean, we don't necessarily get a motion graphics project come through the door that often where it warrants that kind of need. But yeah, and then like you said, the production coordinator who manages all that, because when you're managing 10 clients at once, you know, it's just like, oh my God, how many emails am I going to send out today?
Yeah. I think there was a point we had like this collective epiphany at one point where like it was a crazy busy week, and like at the end of the day we realized like I don't know if we spent like a single minute on anything except just client communication for the past 2 days. Like it's
that happens so much.
And it's like, okay, cool, like what do we do about this? Like this isn't necessarily sustainable if I mean for our goals, like what we want to do, like this isn't necessarily the world we want to live in. So it's been a huge help on that side of things. So it's been great.
Yeah, especially when there have been I remember there was one particular project where it was just like a simple type of a corporate style shoot, but they wanted to do it in a studio. They had a very specific kind of request for it, and they had a very quick timeline. Like, we need you to do this in like a week, right? But then you have to go check the studios that are available, see if they're any good, if they can provide you what you need. You know, just even doing those things, you know, it takes so much time. It's like a half hour to an hour to drive to it, half hour to review it, half hour to an hour to come back. If you have to check multiple, there you go. That's a whole day gone that you couldn't have been working on other things, you know, like creative briefs, you know, outreach, you know, networking, you know. That's why you need more and more people to join over time to just kind of help alleviate that load.
There's like a point when you're running a business where it just the pre-production work or just communications just starts to snowball into like a big pile of work, and it's so time consuming. And it's like because you're so used to doing all that stuff by yourself, but like I feel like there's like that one moment where you're like, I can't do this by myself anymore. It's just taken away from other things that I can't do other work. I can't get other projects because I don't have enough time to create a proposal, like work on my pitch. Just crazy how quickly that happens. Like we're in the process right now where I think we're quickly approaching that stage. So pretty soon we'll probably have to start thinking about maybe bringing on like a production coordinator or someone else to help us out with that.
Yeah. I mean, the first talent that we started to hire out for was having an editor, right? Because before we were basically just taking turns editing based on the projects. It's like when you're editing, I'm sure you guys have felt this before. When you're editing a project for, you know, 8 hours or 7 hours in a day, and then the other guy calls you, it's like, oh, we got to work on that proposal for that other client. It's like, get away from me.
Yeah.
Don't talk to me.
It's the hardest thing in the world is like exactly what you just said, especially when you like look at your schedule too and you're like, okay, I have 3 hours to edit. But it's like it doesn't always work like that, you know. Like you need to get in the groove of editing. Like you can't just schedule 3 hours to edit and expect like a good product in the end. Like it's been tricky.
Yeah, our shooter editor was our employee, and big time there. Like, you know, getting that assistance on the editing side of things was so crucial. And I think it becomes quite challenging to like pivot from one task to another. Like you go from a proposal, go from like some emails, go to edit, and like if you're trying to squeeze editing in within an hour or two, like that's not a good recipe for editing. You need to sink your teeth into it a little bit, right? So having that extra help on the editing was so crucial for us to to grow.
Yeah, I think we were afraid to, you know, because at the time we probably weren't making as much money to the point where we thought we could afford to start hiring editors for projects. But then once we started doing it, we started seeing how much more time we had to generate new business, to contact people, to improve our briefs, to improve our website, to improve our marketing material. It's like, oh wow, like now we have more business so that we can bring these people in. So that's the one thing a lot of people need to like you know, remember. It's like, don't be afraid to bring in help, you know, because it opens up the most valuable resource, which is not the money, it's the time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I think we like think of it, you know, as we grow, it's that question of do you want to be more hands-on, like just remain hands-on with the work and like truly do kind of the craft of video, or you know, are you prepared to kind of maybe give up some of that to, you know, manage a team that can do it, and you still, you know, ultimately you're still part of a team that's making really incredible content, but you're now a little bit on the outside of the creative process maybe, and you're more on the managing side of things like that. Those are two kind of competing components there. But I think and there's not really a right or wrong, right? It depends on what your personal preferences are and what you want to get out of like your day-to-day. But it's a part of the day-to-day regardless of what you do, I suppose. So
Absolutely, it's like the first steps to growth, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we should probably end it off there now.
Like a somewhere right there. But yeah, like I honestly, guys, like I really like the kind of direction that this conversation went, where we were talking about the importance of talent and bringing in the right people. It's always nice to hear other people's perspectives, especially in places that, you know, not many people get a chance to hear from, you know, like and you know, we really thank you guys for joining us. But before we end the show here, one question we like to ask a lot of our guests is, how did you guys come up with the name Enjoy Creative?
Oh geez. Oh man,
A lot of lists, I
a
guess.
lot of lists.
A
We
list
had-
of words.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, we had I think a notepad. It's probably still, I think we ripped the page off and put it somewhere, but it's of all these kind of names, some better than others, and I think just kind of like workshopping them.
URL availability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does the website exist?
Yeah. No, it's not the most glamorous story, but it was one that we kind of liked, and we thought it represented. I think we all, part of what we've always wanted to do is to be like, to have fun, like try and have fun with it. We are in a fun industry. Video, you know, video is extremely stressful without a doubt, but at the same time, it's really fun. Like we're making really cool content. So trying to like encapsulate a little bit of that fun in it, I think was a part of the appeal to Enjoy. Yeah.
Nice. Was that like the first one on the list, or was it like number 10, 15?
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah. I think I think there was what we like.
We had like a pro and con list.
We have a pro and con list. There was like a
It was a science.
Like if you could give your business a personality, what words would you use to describe that personality? And then like using those words, like what, you know, what kind of what's the word I'm looking for? A word map or whatever.
Yeah.
Around those words kind of like come in your mind. So yeah, there was a bunch of, we had too much time.
And then, you know, the like the creative component of it, you know, there's media, there's creative, there was video, there's films, there's what else could there be? I don't know. All those options.
Productions.
Enjoy productions. Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, that was another component to it.
Oh, that's great. Well, guys, thanks again for joining us on Creatives Grab Coffee. You know, we'll definitely be keeping in touch with you guys, and who knows, maybe in another year or two, we'll have you guys for a recurrence episode.
Yeah,
course,
follow up
yeah.
would be fun. Thanks so much, guys. This
Yeah.
is great.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Amazing. All right. Take care, guys.